Welcome to the stream. I'm Matt Zoe. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, we're gonna start with the Moon Boots remix. So I'll just play a little bit. So yeah, if you want to go check out the full track, it's on all streaming platforms and YouTube and all that. Yeah, let's dive into it. So as you can see, I've got everything routed into two groups. So one for drums and one for the side chain, which is like, yeah, all my bass sounds and synth stuff and effects all go through that. And there's also another side chain channel in here for the percussion. So yeah, with like housey tracks, I generally like to have everything except the kick and clap if there is one, or snare. I like it all to be sidechained to the kick, so it's all, you know, thumping, the kick's thumping nicely in the mix and nothing else is crowding it. So yeah, let's take a look at the drums. Let's listen to the drums on their own first. So there's a sort of fake drop where there's like 2 bars of no drums, and then so yeah, I guess we'll start with the kick drum. And here what I did, I just used one of my own kicks that I made that's in the Mad Zoo Drums sample pack that's available on Splice. Usually I'll make my own kick from scratch, but because this was a remix and it needed a quick turnaround, I kind of just threw this kick in there, and yeah, this is the one that I used. So, and the way I made that kick is I had one instance of kick 2 with a short release time, so it was just like the transient, and then I'll have another instance of Serum with a slow attack, and sort of layer the two with like a pitch envelope on the instance of Serum, and this instance of Serum would just be like a sine wave or something. So yeah, it's usually 2 instances I'll make my kick, and that's how I made this. I just bounced it down to one audio file. It has a lot more weight underneath than usual without using extra EQs or anything. So instead of trying to EQ a kick drum to sound big and fat, I'll just add another layer and then blend the two so they work. And then this is just some claps and other percussion stuff. Nothing too exciting, just one layer. Yeah, sometimes I'll go really intricate with layering and stuff. Sometimes it doesn't need it, just needs a little. That's what I did. And then there's this percussion channel, group, sorry, and that's all being sidechained by the kick. As you can see, in my kick channel, I've got 2 triggers. So one's triggering this percussion, and the other's triggering the main sidechain. This guy, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. This percussion channel, let's hear it. So I think initially I just had this loop, which is most of these things are from the Madzu drum sample pack. Some hi-hats. And yeah, here's another little hi-hat layer, which I added a little micro shift by Soundtoys, just to give it a little bit of stereo widening. What they would do is they would have like 3 Eventide 3000s, and they would pitch one slightly and put it to the right, and then pitch the other one slightly more or less and put it to the left. So it would have this sort of chorus stereo widening effect. Yeah, so without it, it was cool, but I kind of wanted a little bit more width in the hi-hats, so I added that layer. And then this is just a white noise, I think, to give the hi-hats a little bit more air. And I took out a little bit of, I think it's like 8K. Just a really small layer in there just to give it a little bit more air in the high frequencies. More loops. And yeah, it looks like I added some more claps and other percussion stuff just to keep the groove going. And also, all these channels have a groove, a swing on them, so it's like, you know, swings with the tune. I wanted a lot of swing in this because I wanted it to be like garagey, and garage always has swing all the way up to 100. So yeah, I wanted to get that really like triplet feel almost. So here's some claps, I think. Yeah. Some other percussion. Yeah, some snares. There's not much processing on these, just a little bit of EQ to take out a little bit of the high end on these claps or the high mids on the claps and the snares. Yeah, not much processing on this. I kind of wanted to just keep it raw. Didn't want to tune it, touch it up too much, and make it all perfect. And yeah, it's just a ride cymbal that comes in. Yeah, not much to it. Not much to these drums at all. Maybe a little. Yeah, that's a little drum fill I made with Nephaton, which is a 808 drum machine VST by D16, I believe. Yeah, it's a really great little plug in that. So let's look into what we got going down here. I guess we can start with the bass stuff. So let's solo the bass. As you can hear, by itself, it doesn't sound like much. You know, I wanted like each different note to have a different sound, and so yeah, the bass line moves a lot. So here I've just got this one. and then this would be the first note. Really the sounding thing, you know. All I did here was like layer the dry signal with a little bit of, yeah, with a little bit of reverb. Yeah. Some weird stuff going on. Yeah, just tried to get a bit of movement going in the sound with multipass. Yeah, adding LFOs to stuff, bit crushing, ring modulation, just playing around with it, trying to get a different sound. So this, again, is just, yeah, almost no post-processing. Just a little bit of stuff inside Serum. Here I use Phase Plant. So yeah, this group in Phase Plant would take care of the sub. And this, I guess, is doing the harmonics. This is amplitude modulating this waveform. And then I guess this LFO is controlling the amount. You can make this in Serum even. It's not too complicated. But what makes this bass line cool, what's this? Oh yeah, and I used a little bit of the original bass sound as well. So altogether it creates this nice moving bass line. But by itself it sounds like crap. What makes it cool, so I have these chord synths layered on top. And I wanted to make it sound like the chords were almost like part of the bass sound. And you can hear they're like really crunchy. So what I actually did to get that sound is I used a lot of tube saturation on the group, and then underneath it I put the sub, which you can't really hear right now because there's a high pass filter on it. So you'll hear if I take out the sub, this just sounds like a normal synth, doesn't sound like anything special. It's when you add the fundamental of the sub to it. And then you know, that's how it is sounding like a big distorted bass sound, when actually the bass sound is actually pretty clean and crappy sounding. And I guess I've got different subs being layered with different synths to get that effect. So if I solo this group, let's hear. I guess this is actually, yeah, a bass sound that, yeah, when I high pass it, just turned into kind of lead. So yeah, it's all about distorting things, distorting lead sounds with a fundamental of a sub to get that crunch. And you can get the same effect with sort of fake distortion using multipass or some other ring modulator plugin, and using a ring modulator with, like, it's set to whatever band or whatever external bass input you want, and this will create that effect of fluttering with the fundamental of the sub. You'll hear it's not doing anything because it's already happening through the tube saturation going on here. Ring modulation and tube type saturation with sine waves underneath it is the way to go. layering some clean sounds with those dirty sounds to give it some contrast. Because there's a lot of crunchiness going on. It's nice to give the ears a break and, yeah, have some nice, clean, square, wavy kind of things going on. And there's also this little chord here. Which I sometimes have it play with the sub and sometimes without, so sometimes it sounds cleaner and sometimes it sounds crunchy. That's with the sub. That's without. We can look into the serum patch a little bit more. It's, yeah, a lot of FM from B stuff, kind of like pretty basic like movements just going on with, yeah, the frequency modulation and the cutoff on the filter. It's nothing crazy. Downsampling and, yeah, a little bit of, I think the phaser's not even moving. Yeah, it's just creating. Yeah, and again, by itself without the sub, it doesn't sound very good. Yeah, as soon as you layer it, distort it together, just sounds great. I guess we can move on to the vocals.
Tell me you're tired, boy, it ain't true. Won't you come and tie me up? We can break through.
Yeah, I didn't do that much to the vocals either. I added a little bit of Little Radiator, which I love, to just give it a little bit of saturation without adding volume. That's the great thing about this, is it sort of lowers the overall gain and you can push the overall feeling of it sticking out of the speakers more with this. I don't know how, but it's a really nice saturator. And then I've got a bit of U80 1073 on it. And then this thing, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I think it's like a spectral tone shaper. So it takes the FTT curve of the shape and then applies new curves to it, and it's like OTT almost.
Tell me you're tired, boy, it ain't true. Won't you come and tie me up? We can break through.
It adds a lot of air without losing too much clarity. Although you do lose a little bit of clarity with this plugin. Yeah, it didn't really do that much to the vocals.
Tie me up, tie me up, tie me up, tie me up. It's time to.
Yeah, just having different instances with amounts of different stuff on them. And yeah, trying to change up the vocal sound a little bit throughout the track.
Why don't you?
So during the drops, I used different processing to make it different from the intros and the breakdowns.
Tell me you're tired, boy, it ain't true.
And here's just a Satson channel, which is just like a console strip emulation. I think it's trying to emulate an SSL. And I just used that to turn up the gain a little bit and do a little bit of high passing. And then another Soundtoys plugin, yeah, the SciEQ, just pushing the highs and the mids a little bit. And here I didn't do anything except for EQing with ProQ.
Tie me up, tie me up. Tie me up, tie me up.
So yeah, then we go into the breakdown, and there I added a bunch of stuff. There was this piano track that came in the original. And as you can see, I just squashed the crap out of it with the OTT because I wanted to layer some other stuff on top of it. It's this. Just a crappy little string sound I found in my sample library.
It's time to
Yeah, so I want to add a little bit of contact strings and other stuff to make the chords in the breakdown come alive a little bit more. So as you can hear, like, it's getting really squashed by the sidechain. Or if I take it off. Oh yeah. So basically for the breakdowns I had it being sidechained by an actual compressor routed to the kick drum, and with no release whatsoever. So without this you can hear it. And it creates a little bit of like weird distortion every time the kick triggers it, and I kind of liked that for this for some reason. Instead of just using a volume shaper and triggering it, I wanted to use that because it felt a little bit more raw and old school. That's why you hear those little yeah, and another contact layer, which again I squashed with OTT. I'll use OTT if I'm like rushing something and I don't care too much about sonics. I just care about getting the idea and the general feel of something. And for both of these string parts I'm using session strings by E Instruments. Here I've got some of those ooh-ah ooh-ah oohs that were in the original. And I just add a little bit of phaser to them. Again, another Soundtoys plugin. And yeah, some UAD stuff. This one's just boosting the highs a little bit. And yeah, when it's on its own and you can hear the sidechain working, it sounds like absolute ass. But as soon as you play it with everything else, it yeah, it just works. So yeah, sometimes if you're soloing something for too long and you're stuck on one little detail and you forget about the rest of the mix, you'll realize that you can easily fuck up your mix by paying attention to one little thing and making it sound really elaborate, and you know, when it's not meant to in the mix, you know. So that's one thing to take away from this. Just a little using the vocal for some effects, bouncing it with some reverb. So yeah. And the only difference in the second drop is I changed the patches so they have a more of a dotted eighth note feel rather than an eighth note feel. So the first drop is like ba 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 boom boom. So the second drop I wanted it to be like dun 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 dun, you know, just change up the rhythm a little bit. So all I really had to do was change the LFO pattern a bit. Otherwise, it's pretty much exactly the same as the first drop. And then just some effects layered over it. Nothing special here. There's just some crashes and some risers.